Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. My name is Sarah Rush and we are going to be talking about self-care. Let's start with a word of prayer. God of the universe, we pray for faith and hope in these uncertain times. May the peace that surpasses all understanding guard our hearts, words, and actions so that we may be beacons of light and life. God of all healing, you are the great physician. We lift up those who have been afflicted and pray for full recovery. We lift up those who mourn and pray for peace and strength to wash over them. God of protection, we lift up babies and the elderly. May all those who serve them be healthy. Form a hedge of protection around your most vulnerable. We also lift up those on the front lines, all medical and public safety workers. Keep them well. God who is with us, we lift up those who are already isolated, shut in, or quarantined. Speak your comfort and presence into their days and nights and quiet the chatter of anxiety. We pray for those in need of food and basic needs, that their resources would overflow with the generosity of those who have plenty. In the illusion of scarcity, remind us that you are worthy of our complete trust. You will not leave us nor forsake us. You give us all we need. We lift up scientists and officials searching for answers and informing the public that they would have clarity. We pray for wise, responsive government. And God, we entrust all of this and the concerns of our hearts up to you, the author and perfecter of our faith. Amen. So I don't know about you, but these are some anxious times. I already have a natural propensity toward anxiety, and this past week has really been challenging, with lots of changes and new regulations coming out. It seems like on an hourly basis. And so now it's especially important for me, I'll speak for myself, especially important for me to take that time for self-care, be talking to God, because I've been catastrophizing. I've been making some big what if statements and living in a little bit of fear. And so I hope what we walk through today is helpful for you, and know that I'm doing this as much for you as I am for myself. I need these tools. I also want to make it super duper clear that these are not my ideas. This is a heavily referenced presentation. I do work in mental health. I'm a DBT therapist, so for those of you who are familiar with DBT, this will probably sound familiar. But yeah, heavily referenced. And you'll see those references attached to this presentation. So want you to know that. I also was informed by another friend who's a therapist today that if you're a healthcare professional, Headspace, the app Headspace, is now offering free services. So I haven't checked that out yet, but just something to be aware of. All right, so the bulk of our time is going to be spent really challenging some myths that we have about self-care. And then I'd like to talk about some very basic ideas for not just these times, but kind of habits to be mindful of forever. So let's start. In your attached handouts, there's a page called Judgments I Have About Self-Care. And so if you'll take a look at that, because here's the thing, like, we all have ideas of what we can do, or maybe we daydream about things that we'd like to do to take care of ourselves. There's no shortage of ideas of what we can do, but I think what really stands in our way are two things. Not making time for it, and our own judgments or thoughts about what it means to take care of ourselves. So I'd like to talk through challenging those judgments. So as we do that, keep in mind that when we think about self-care, or when we think about most anything, we can approach it from an emotional point of view, so our feelings, and those are really valid, okay? Equally valid are the facts about a situation, so what's actually true. And sometimes, especially when emotions are higher, we tend to interpret feelings as facts, and sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's not. So I can feel, for instance, this is a classic example that I give when I'm teaching this sort of thing, but say I walk by a friend, I'm walking down the street and I see a neighbor and I say hi, and they don't look up to say hi. So my emotion mind, or my feelings, might say, what's up there, bud? Or I might say, oh my gosh, did I do something wrong? Have I offended them? And so I have all these emotional interpretations of what's going on. On the other side, there are the facts of the situation, the observable truths. So factually, what I can observe with my five senses is that when I walked by my neighbor, they did not, and said hi, they did not look my way, and they didn't say anything. I don't know why. I can't observe their intentions, their motivations, or even their own feelings. I can observe their body language. I can observe somebody's tone of voice, but I still don't really know. So we have to hold on to this idea that there are many possible interpretations of that event and many possibilities. So it's possible that maybe I did say something to offend them. It's also possible that they didn't hear me, or their mind was something else, was somewhere else, or they had headphones in. So lots of different possibilities, and that's the kind of process or sort of mind shift that we're looking at when we look at challenging these judgments about self-care. So let's take out that sheet. And so number 1 on the sheet that says judgments I have about self-care is I don't have time. And so one way of going about this is sorting out how I feel and what the facts are. And this is not an intuitive process, and it takes some practice. So while you're doing this, you might want to bounce these ideas off of somebody else. I think it's also important that we don't dismiss either one, but that we give how we feel and what the facts are equal weight. It can be really easy to dismiss or minimize our feelings, especially. And something to know about emotions is they're just giving us information. Okay, they're signaling to us like, hey, something's up. So that's a good time to pause and go, what is going on? So, all right, let's jump in. So, number one, I don't have time. So, a feeling behind that, so think of an emotion behind that statement, I don't have time. I'm probably feeling stressed, overwhelmed. Okay, so I can validate that. I can say, yeah, I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now. Some facts might be, it might be necessary for me to take time if I'm feeling this way. Okay. An example comes to mind of a teenager that I was working with, and she was really busy with her schoolwork and really stressed out, really anxious, just physically and emotionally spent. And she kept feeling like, well, I gotta push, I gotta keep going. I can't take time, even 5 minutes, to practice some distress tolerance, some self-soothe, find a way to take care of that, right? And so we really had to challenge that myth, that idea that she's got to keep going. So she was already depleted, and then trying to maintain the standard of performance that she had when she wasn't depleted. So a way that we can challenge that is saying, I can take at least 5 minutes, or I can ask for help. Sometimes we feel like I have to do this all by myself, right? That can be another judgment that we have about self-care. Well, I'm going to get ahead of myself a little bit. So one challenge statement to I don't have time is I can take 5 minutes, even if it's just sitting and breathing. Maybe you're sitting out on your front steps. It's amazing how much a change of scenery and some fresh air can do. So I can take at least 5 minutes. Let's take a look at number 2. I can't afford it. It's too expensive. Okay, so sometimes when we think about self-care, we think about spa days and extravagance, and it definitely doesn't have to be that. It can be that. It certainly can be that. So the feeling might be, I feel strapped for cash. And the fact is, self-care can be expensive, or there can be an expense to self-care. And I don't have to spend a dime to take care of myself. Again, lots of different ways that we can take care of ourselves that are free or inexpensive. I want to throw out a note about comparison too. So when you're finally taking the time to take care of yourself, do what works for you. Sometimes we might feel like, oh, if, it's got to be this or it's got to be that, or we kind of hold it against maybe somebody else's ideas or standards for their own self-care. And do what works. Maybe it is getting your nails done. Maybe it's 20 minutes in your bed with silence. It can be anything. All right. Let's look at number 3. It's selfish or self-absorbed to take time for yourself. Okay. So some challenges to that. Taking time for myself actually helps me feel less anxious, tired, restless, fill in the blank, right? So it's necessary to charge up our batteries. So we actually are better. And you've probably heard this, right? But it doesn't hurt to say it, put it on a post-it note, say it out loud to yourself. But we are no good to other people unless we are filling up our own cup. Okay, we can't give from an empty cup. So I'm a better mom, I'm a better dad, I'm a better wife, I'm a better husband, whatever it is, when I take time to take care of myself. Number 4, my kids or my partner won't be able to tolerate my time away. So we might feel worried that, oh, they're gonna miss us, or my partner's gonna get really stressed or overwhelmed having to do it all himself or herself. And the truth is, we don't know how our kids or our partner will feel. We don't have a crystal ball. We simply don't know. That's not to say we can't make an educated guess, but remember, that's still a guess. And so a challenge to that is I can ask, I can assert my needs, and maybe I need to go for a compromise. My husband and I did that today. He stayed at home while our youngest napped, and I got out of the house with our oldest. And then I came back and we swapped, and he got out with our oldest and got some fresh air. So, and I realize not everybody has a partner. And so bring in your people who can help you out, even if it's for a half hour. I can't stress the importance of asserting yourself versus letting things bubble up and spill over. And I'm speaking from experience because I have really had to work on assertiveness myself. It didn't come naturally to me. My pattern was pretty passive aggressive, and so I'm working on it. But we don't want resentment and bitterness to build up on top of this. So there's where we gotta ask for what we want. Number 5, I'm too distracted or worried when I take time for myself. Why bother? Man, this really speaks to like, I'm going to bed, I'm finally laying down, and then like the to-do list starts playing, or I mean, you name it, my mind's going to many different things. The fact is, the to-do list is always going to be there. And so maybe you've heard like, keep a pen and paper by your bed, write it down. But the fact is, if we're too anxious or overwhelmed or worried, again, those are our emotions telling us it's time for a break. It's time to do some self-care. And maybe self-care is organizing a closet, okay? Knocking something off that to-do list. So it might seem like, well, my to-do list doesn't go away, so I have to keep working at it. When really, the fact is, yeah, your to-do list doesn't go away, and so why not take time? That's my thought. All right, I added another one. Number 6 was blank, but I put, I don't deserve it. Okay? And I'm just going to tell you right now, everyone is worthy of self-care. And so when you're feeling this way, and when it's hard to find that compassion for yourself, think of what a good friend or somebody who loves you really well, somebody who's looking out for your best interest, what would they tell you in that moment? What would they tell you to do when you're feeling like, I don't know if I deserve it, or I don't know if I've worked hard enough to warrant this time for myself. What would a good friend say? So, some food for thought there. Fill in your own. But I hope this is a good reference for you. Write this down. Write those challenge statements on a Post-it. Put them up. Put them in your planner. What we really, I think we need to break down those barriers, and this is part of it. Challenging some of those judgments that we have about self-care. So, the other thing that can get in the way of taking care of ourselves is time. And feeling like we just don't have the time. So there's, in the handouts to this presentation, there's a list of lots of different things to do. There's also there's a homework sheet that lists, so on the sheet, it talks about short things that you can do in the short term. And it's in the DBT worksheets for adolescents, emotion regulation. So you'll see a homework sheet where it's talking about different days of the week and actually planning something for each day. I would highly recommend that you plan it. Put it in your calendar, put it in your planner, and make time for that like you mean it, like it's a priority. I've had people set reminders on their phone, and so maybe every couple hours it'll go off and they just walk away from their desk for 2 minutes, whatever that might be. But try something new, and schedule it. All right, so those 4 ideas for not just self-care, but these are just real basics during these times of social distancing and isolation. So if there's nothing else that you take care of, I think these are 4 just very important things. So first is structure and routine. So try to start your day, keep as much routine as possible. Keep up with all the normal things as much as you normally would. I don't have school-age children. My children are younger, and so it'll be interesting to see what kind of structure I can add to their day, but just trying to make sure everybody's, getting up, having breakfast, getting dressed, showering. The other day I realized it had been all day and I hadn't showered, and because, hey, I wasn't seeing anybody. And then lo and behold, obviously it made a difference after I showered. Just felt better. And so, get up, take care of yourself, wear clean clothes. Again, it might sound obvious, and it can be easy for our motivation to put some time and effort into our hygiene or appearance. That can kind of go by the wayside, or we can feel less motivated to do that, and it'll make a big difference. So stick to as much routine as you can. So that's number 1 of 4. second of 4 is an acronym called PLEASE, and I'm gonna hold it. I wrote it out on a whiteboard. Sorry, I'm a little distracted by the laundry. So here we are talking about self-care. So I wrote it down. I'm just gonna hold it up. You can jot it down, you can press pause. Here's the PLEASE acronym. All right, so the P in PLEASE stands for physical illness. So this means that we are taking care of our any sort of ailment, whether it be allergies, I got a headache, I got a stomach ache, I break my arm, I need to go to the doctor. So we're taking care of ourselves. And that's really the idea behind these PLEASE skills, is the more we take care of our physical selves, the less likely it is that that we are susceptible to our emotions. Sorry, I'm a little distracted by that, and my husband's got it. Okay. So, taking care of our physical selves as a way of reducing our vulnerability or our susceptibility to more intense emotions. So, taking care of physical illness. Laughter is the L in PLEASE, and so finding regular ways to laugh and actually being intentional about it, making sure that you're laughing a few times a day. 1E in PLEASE is balanced eating, okay? So not eating too much, not eating too little. I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely done some emotional eating the past few days. And some of that's okay. I'm not judging myself or anybody else. And I know that if I overdo it with certain foods, it definitely affects my mood. And so just being mindful of how certain foods affect you physically and emotionally. And then balance. So everything in moderation. Make sure that you are trying to follow the food pyramid, things like that. A in PLEASE is avoid mood-altering substances. So caffeine is my drug of choice for sure. And being an anxious person, I need to really watch how much caffeine I'm drinking. If I drink too much, I get a little too restless and on edge, and so I really need to watch how much caffeine I drink. Probably goes without saying that we want to avoid street drugs, but we also want to look at our alcohol and our nicotine. And so some people know that they can have certain amounts of this or small amounts of this. Some people know that they really can't have any alcohol or nicotine. And so just looking at what the healthy balance for you is. S in PLEASE is sleep, balancing our sleep. Oh my goodness, you guys, I don't know of many people who get consistently good sleep or balanced sleep. So watching for not getting too much, not getting too little, and I guess I'll just briefly say, like, trying to go to bed and wake up at the same time. Again, that's part of that routine that I talked about earlier, but it helps with our memory when we're going to bed and waking up at the same time every day. So trying to do that as much as possible. When we're short on sleep, it can be really tempting to take a nap. Watch how much nap times affect your nighttime sleep. So working on balancing our sleep. And then the last E in PLEASE is exercise. So 20 to 30 minutes a day. Get that heart rate up. That's kind of what's recommended. And if you're not exercising at the moment, again, we're looking to balance these police skills. The more balanced they are, the more we're working toward balance. It's probably not all going to be balanced all the time, right? So it's moving toward that. So for instance, if you're not exercising right now, what can you do? Can you start by doing 5 minutes of yoga a day, or taking a walk, or whatever it might be? But we're going for 20 to 30 minutes, at minimum 3 times a week. I think ideally it's a daily practice. So that's the please skills, the second of some 4 basic skills that I want to talk about. The third is avoiding isolating, and I thank God for video chats, FaceTime, Google Duo, all of the video conferencing and chatting capabilities that we have. I mean, thank goodness, right? So I got to tell you that my grandma lives on the first floor of a care facility, and my parents the other day went and just stood outside her window and tapped on it because everybody's quarantined. They can't let anybody in, but they just tapped on her window to say hi, and that just brightened her day. So looking for ways to avoid isolation. And if you can't video chat, maybe you're just calling, texting, whatever it is, but find a way to connect with somebody else, even while we're social distancing. And then lastly, the fourth is about temperature, really cold temperature. So when we think self-care, we typically think soothing, right? And maybe we even think heat, like a nice hot bath, or a hot pack on some sore muscles, or whatever that might be. So I was thinking about this because when we're in close quarters, it's really easy, or maybe I'm just talking about myself, but I feel like tensions run high, and when we're just more restless, I think easily agitated. And so I'm going to talk about something that you can do when you're noticing especially anxiety and anger start to escalate. So this skill is going to kind of snap you out of it. So it's not about relaxing or soothing. I'm not saying those can't be helpful, but this is like, I'm escalating and I need to like turn things around really quickly. So you're going to fill a sink or a bowl full of ice cold water. Add ice if you can, as cold as you can tolerate, and you're not going to go and stick your head in, but you're just going to try to take a deep breath and then submerge your face. And you're just gonna keep your face submerged in that ice cold water until you notice your heart rate start to decrease. You basically start to notice a slowing down. So if you're amping up with anxiety or anger, you're probably noticing a faster heart rate. You might feel hot. And so again, this just kind of snaps you out of it. It's amazing to me how quickly this skill works. So, and if you don't have a sink or a bowl readily available, grab an ice pack, grab some frozen peas, and just put them over your eyes and take some deep breaths. Carotid artery is another good place, or your wrists. And so that can be a way to more immediately relieve any intense emotion, but I think especially anger and anxiety. So thank you so much for joining me. That's where I'm going to wrap it up. I hope this was helpful for you, and God bless you.